Washington, D.C., April the 24th, 1913, 7:30 in the evening. The President of the United States walks to a desk and presses a small brass button. 200 miles away, on the 27th floor of a brand new tower in Manhattan, a heavyset man with a walrus mustache is hosting dinner for 900 guests. His name is Frank Woolworth, and until tonight, the tallest thing he owned was a chain of stores where nothing costs more than a dime. The instant the button comes down, 80,000 light bulbs ignite at once, and the tallest building human beings have ever constructed steps out of the dark. 792 feet of carved stone, wearing light. Every dollar of this place was earned 5 and 10 cents at a time, but the man who paid for it could never sell a thing. As a young clerk, he was judged too clumsy to be trusted with customers. Yet tonight, he owns the tallest building on earth, bought outright, in cash. How? And how does the empire that built it end up as a sneaker store in a shopping mall? This is New American Fortunes, where almost none of them ended the way they began. Subscribe, because the building is the only thing in this story left standing. It begins on a potato farm in upstate New York. Frank Winfield Woolworth is born in 1852 in Rodman, New York, a village where the cash crop is potatoes and the winter lasts 5 months. He decides early that whatever his life is going to be, it will not be this. At 21, he talks his way into the biggest dry goods store in Watertown, Augsbury, and more as a stock boy. For his first 3 months, the story goes, he works for no pay at all. But there is a problem. Frank cannot sell. He is nervous with customers and hopeless at haggling. And in 1873, haggling is the job. Most goods carry no price tag. Every sale is a negotiation, and Frank keeps losing them. So the owners give him the one job in the store where the customers cannot reach him: the window. And it turns out the man who cannot sell can display. His windows stop people on the sidewalk. Then, in 1878, a fad reaches Watertown. A clearance table piled with odds and ends, everything on it one fixed price: 5 cents. The store lets Frank build one. The junk on that table outsells entire departments. Frank stares at it and sees what nobody else in the store does. The table does not need a salesman. The price is the salesman. If everything costs a nickel, nothing has to be negotiated. And a man who cannot sell can run a store. His boss, William Moore, stakes his awkward clerk around $300 in goods to try it. On February the 22nd, 1879, Woolworth's great 5-cent store opens in Utica, New York. It is dead within 3 months. Wrong street, thin crowds. By May, the store is finished, and Frank pays more back and crates up what is left. But he does not abandon the idea. He doubles it. June the 21st, 1879, Lancaster, Pennsylvania. The same sign, the same nickel goods, plus a second line at 10 cents. The 5 and dime is born on a Saturday morning. By closing time, Frank has taken in $127.65. Nearly a third of everything in the store gone in one day. What he does next is stranger than franchising. Instead of guarding the idea, he gives it away. His brother Sumner, his cousin Seymour Knox, Fred Kirby, Earl Charlton, even William Moore, the boss who staked him. Each opens 5 and dimes under his own name, all of them buying together, none of them competing head-on. 12 stores by 1889, 59 by 1900, taking $5 million a year. A nickel and a dime at a time. Frank, meanwhile, turns himself into the best buyer alive. He sails to Europe and comes home with German glass Christmas ornaments by the crate, bought straight from the villages that blow them. Skip the middleman, buy a maker's entire run, and a nickel buys what used to cost a quarter. In 1912, the friends stop pretending to be rivals. 6 chains merge into one company, F.W. Woolworth, 596 stores, and list on the New York Stock Exchange under a single letter, Z. And now Frank wants a building. Not offices, a signboard. Something so tall the company will never need to buy an advertisement again. He hires Cass Gilbert, one of the finest architects in America, and the first plan is modest, a $5 million tower. But Frank keeps visiting the drawings, and every visit ends with the same word: taller. Ground breaks in November 1910 at Broadway and Park Place, and what rises over the next 2 years looks less like an office block than a cathedral stretched to 60 stories. Gargoyles, terracotta lace, a green copper crown. The bill comes to $13.5 million, and skyscrapers are what mortgages are for. But not this one. Some sources say Frank paid for the whole thing in cash. No loans, no partners, no debt. The tallest building on earth, bought outright with nickels and dimes. Which brings us back to the button. The lights fire, 900 guests stand and cheer, and the harbor below fills with the reflection of a monument to loose change. A clergyman gazing up at it gives it the name that sticks: the Cathedral of Commerce. Frank prefers his own version. He calls it the greatest advertisement a business ever had. For 17 years, nothing human beings build stands taller. Frank gets 6 of those years. In the spring of 1919, an infected tooth needs pulling, and he keeps putting off the dentist until the infection spreads and makes the decision for him. On April the 8th, 5 days short of his 67th birthday, the man who built the Cathedral of the Nickel dies of a bad tooth. He leaves more than 1,000 stores, a fortune of some $76 million, and a new will he never got around to signing. So under the old will from 1889, everything goes to his wife Jenny, whose dementia is now so deep she will never understand that she has become one of the richest women in the world. The company does not even slow down. Through the 20s and 30s and 40s, the red and gold storefront becomes American wallpaper. There is a Woolworth's on the main street of nearly every town in the country, and inside nearly every Woolworth's, a lunch counter. Coffee, sandwiches, pie, cheaper than anywhere else on the street. For millions of Americans, the counter at Woolworth's is simply where you eat downtown. Which is why, on February the 1st, 1960, 4 college students walk into the Woolworth's in Greensboro, North Carolina, sit down at that counter, and order coffee. Ezell Blair, David Richmond, Franklin McCain, Joseph McNeil. The counter is whites only, and the staff refuses to serve them. The 4 men keep their seats until the store closes. The next morning, they come back. The sit-in spreads city by city until it is a movement, and for 6 months the company on every American Main Street is the company at the center of the question of who is allowed to sit down on one. On July the 25th, 1960, the Greensboro counter is desegregated, and Woolworth's ends the whites-only rule across the South. A section of that lunch counter stands today in the Smithsonian. By then, Woolworth looks eternal. It is one of the 30 companies in the Dow Jones Industrial Average, the elect of American capitalism. But the nickel idea it was built on is about to be picked up by somebody else. 1962 is the year cheap gets reinvented. Within months of each other, 3 discount chains open their first stores: Kmart in Michigan, Target in Minnesota, and in Arkansas, a single store called Walmart. Here is the tragedy. Woolworth sees it coming. It launches its own discount chain that very same year, Woolco. Same idea, bigger company, an 80-year head start in retail. What could possibly go wrong? Woolco is run like a five and dime with bigger shelves. The old company's costs, the old company's habits, at discount prices. It bleeds for 2 decades, until in 1983, it collapses across the United States, hundreds of stores at once. The Canadian Woolcos hold on another decade, until 1994, when they are sold, in one transaction, to the winner. Walmart enters Canada through doors Frank Woolworth's company built. And the sneakers? The sneakers have been hiding in the story since 1963. That year, rich and restless, Woolworth bought a shoe chain called Kinney. And in 1974, Kinney tried an experiment. A store that sold nothing but athletic shoes, run by clerks dressed as referees. They called it Foot Locker. In 1979, the company turns 100, and the Guinness Book certifies it as the largest department store chain on Earth. It is the last trophy the five and dime will ever win. Where did everybody go? The main streets have emptied into the malls, and the malls belong to the discounters. Through the 80s, the red signs come down by the hundreds, and in October 1993, the company begins closing more than 800 of its general stores. Then, in March 1997, the Dow Jones Industrial Average quietly changes one name on its list of 30. The name coming out is Woolworth. The name going in, taking its seat, is Walmart. 4 months later, on July the 17th, 1997, the company announces that the last 400 American five and dimes will close. 118 years after Utica, the letter Z comes off the New York Stock Exchange. What remains sells the building. The Cathedral of Commerce goes to a property developer in 1998, and the company that built it renames itself Venator, Latin for hunter, a name nobody could pronounce and nobody missed. In 2001, it surrenders to the obvious and takes the name of the one thing still growing. The F.W. Woolworth Company becomes Foot Locker. The empire that survived the Depression, 2 world wars, and its founder's bad tooth is now a sneaker store in the mall. And there is one more turn. In September 2025, Foot Locker itself is bought, swallowed for roughly $2.5 billion by Dick's Sporting Goods. The last descendant of the nickel empire is now a brand inside somebody else's, which leaves the building. The company is gone, the counters are gone, the nickel buys nothing. Yet walk to Broadway and Park Place tonight, and it is still there. The lace still carved, the crown still green. Apartments now where Frank's marble office was. The lights still come on in the evening. Nobody presses a button for them anymore. But the tower that Spare Change built has outlived the counters, the company, and the coin itself. If you ever shopped at a Woolworth's or ate at one of those counters, tell us the town, the year, and what you got for your dime. The comments on stories like this become a map of a country that is not on the road atlas anymore, and we read every one.